Volleyball Legends, or Haikyuu Legends. This is a game that I have been playing for quite some time now, and I am going to go over the best styles in the game. But the thing is that all of the commons and rares, basically the green and blue ones, they just suck. Just automatically roll them. I'm only going to be talking about legendaries and above, alright? And for a lot of the legendaries, some of them just suck as well. So you just want to get those out. So without further ado, let's get started. So at the very bottom of the legendaries is Kosumi. Kosumi's serve is just, downright outrageously terrible, and his spike is pretty bad. And in a game, here are the main categories that you're looking for, okay? You are going to be looking for the serve, as you're going to be doing that half the time if you're in like a 6v6 game mode, and if you're in a, let's say, 2v2 or 3v3, the serve is still going to be really relevant, as you're going to be doing that a few times a game perhaps. And additionally, you also need a really good block. Now block is more so in a 6v6 type scenario, because you can afford some blockers. Because in a, let's say, 2v2, right, if you block and then you miss the block, then the enemy just needs to hit it on one of the two sides that you're not blocking to, and that is too big of a court for your defenders to try to defend. So block is better on a 6v6 court and worse on a 2v2 court, because you don't have as many chances to use it. Now the bump kind of just sucks. I mean, you're just giving the enemy a free spike, right? You're giving the enemy, like, they can set it and then they get like a perfect spike. There is literally almost no reason to bump. It's just like your bump can be worth 0 or it could be worth like a lot. But if your other stats are bad, then I mean bump just kind of sucks. So bump is completely irrelevant. Next up we have the set. Now the set is pretty relevant. Setting is the main way you can go and prepare for a set spike. Now there are some other ways, for example if the enemy gives you a free bump or whatnot, but normally you have a teammate set it and then you can go and spike it, or you set it to a teammate and your teammate can go spike it. So setting is a pretty crucial part, and setting will be valued pretty highly as well. Next up we have the dive. Now the dive is normally good if the enemy, if they spike it down, or if they do a really good serve. But the main thing is that diving, while it is important, it's not as important as the different other aspects. So diving won't be as important, but it is definitely more important than bump, as bump is literally just worth 0. I don't care if you have the best bump in the game, it's useless. Next up we have speed. Now speed is pretty nice, right? Speed allows you to get to those specific places that you gotta be, but with speed, if you're on a 6v6 court, then speed also becomes less relevant. Actually, speed is on a 6v6 court, speed is less relevant than dive. On a 2v2 court, speed is a bit more relevant than dive, as on a 2v2 court, there's more spaces you have to cover. So with higher speed, you can go and get to those spaces. But also, the same rule applies to dive. On a 2v2 court, dive becomes a little bit more valuable, although still a bit less valuable than speed. But dive is more valuable on a 2v2 court, as again, there's more spaces, so you want to be able to get out to that area and spread yourself out. Now next up, we have the jump. Now the jump also goes hand in hand with spike. We'll talk about that part later. But the jump, it can help you jump up really high and block it, or it can even help you just get some hang time in the air, right? So let's say I'm going up to block, and if I have a really bad jump, then I jump up, I try to block, and then I just come straight back down, and then I don't have any hang time in the air to go and block like an adequate shot, right? But if I have a good jump, then I can just stay in the air, and then even if they go and they do like a delayed spike, which is one of the spikes I talk about in my spiking guide on my channel here, if they do a delayed spike, I can still block it because my jump is so good that I have so much hang time in the air. And also, jump helps you get a really good spike in. If you have a really good jump, right, and you have a better jump than your opponent, then you can just hang in the air until the enemies have fallen down from their jump. But because your jump is so good, you still have hang time, so you're still in the air and you just spike it down. Now, last but not least, we have the infamous spike. Now, the spike is what every single player wants to do in the game. The spike is the part that makes the game exciting. Now, the spike is also your main way to score points, right? In like a rally, for example, the main goal is when the ball comes over, you want to go, receive it, set it up, and then do a good spike and hit it over and try your best to score a point. So the spike will be your main way to score a point, and that's why the spike is also valued highly. So the most highly valued different aspects here would probably be the serve, the jump, and the spike. Now the other parts are also important, and second, or like in the A tier category, I'd rate the block, the set, and the speed. And the bump and dive are just like, dive is C tier and bump is really F tier, irrelevant. I do not care about bump at all. So now with the characters or different styles. So first off, we have Kosumi. Obviously, I think I said it at the start. Kosumi, just terrible serve, terrible spike. It got a good dive, but like, you don't want dive. So Kosumi's the worst legendary. Just reroll it. Next up, we have Yamamute. Now, Yamamute. So here's the thing. This is a classic example of all eggs in one basket, but the basket happens to crack. So in this case, the bump is amazing, but bump is literally useless. You're giving the enemy a free spike. So aside from bump, then the base stat total for the other stats combined together is just downright outrageously horrible. So, look at it. The serve is terrible. The jump is just mid. Like, spiking is okay. But it's just, just get it out. The base stat total is terrible. And moving on, in the B tier, we also have Saga Fuda. Now, for Saga Fuda, right, the serve is terrible. The spike is, pretty bad. And those are some of the main components which make up a good character. So, Saga Fuda out. Literally, okay. Yamamute, Saga Fuda, and Kosumi, those three first legendaries that I talked about, just get them out. If you see them, automatically reroll. Now, next up, we have Kusei. Kusei is where I start to get to the A tier. Now, the A tier category, because Kusei has such good, literally maxed out jump, and also pretty good block, pretty good serve, and pretty good spike, you'd think that it deserves a higher spot. But its base stat total went to bump, which is kind of useless. Now, because it has, pretty good stats into bump, then it could be more spread out into speed, which makes Kusei like a big, chunky guy. He is so slow, he can't really get to those balls. So unless you're playing 6v6, I'd just get rid of him. And next up, we have Yabu. Now, Yabu kind of suffers the same fate as Kusei, but the exact opposite. So Kusei has really bad speed, but good jump, maxed out jump, great spike, great serve. And Yabu has also maxed out jump and maxed out speed as well, instead of, literally no speed. But the spike, on the other hand, is pretty bad, and the serve is downright terrible. And because the serve and spike is so bad, I was considering putting Yabu into the B tier, but upon other consideration, the maxed out jump and the maxed out speed kind of hovers around in an A tier spot. And the speed could be pretty helpful in a 2v2 scenario where there's not many other players. Now, next up on the list, we have Azamena. Azamena has, really good serve. The spike and jump's okay, but the set and speed is just downright horrible. And the block is kind of mid. So this, I'd say, is more of an all-rounder. Can jump up, hit relatively hard, can serve as well. But utility-wise, with his block sets, getting into position with speed, dive, just not there. And last up on our A tier list, we have the Mythic, Oigawa. Now here's the thing, Oigawa, I've been using it for quite a while, and I actually kind of like it. I'm thinking about moving it into like an A or S, right between those two. So I'm just gonna give like an A plus category specifically to Oigawa. Now why do I say that? Because Oigawa's jump is maxed out, right? Obviously that's really good. But also Oigawa's serve is maxed out. And a maxed out serve, Oigawa, I'm pretty sure, is like the only character with a maxed out serve. And that is why Oigawa, I believe, can be pushed into the A plus tier. Because Oigawa, with a maxed out serve, you can literally go and just make amazing plays. You can just get points straight out of the serve. Additionally, the blocking is phenomenal, the set is phenomenal, and it's just the spike that's holding it back. If the spike was just a little bit better, the spiking was as good as its blocking, then it would become an easy S tier. But because of the mediocre spike, I'd have to hold it back into the A or A plus tier. Now moving on to the S, we have another legendary called Uchishima. Now Uchishima has maxed out jump, maxed out spike. So this character is the ultimate fun character in like a 6v6 game mode. Now why 6v6? Because this character, its set is kind of, pretty bad. Its speed is mid, so it doesn't have much utility, but what it does have is being able to jump up and just hammer it down. And if you want a fun game, then pick Uchishima, go to like a casual 6v6 lobby, and just start hitting it down. But if you want to go and play some more competitive game modes, while Uchishima could be fine, you might want a Mythic to go and replace that. But for the legendaries, Uchishima is your best bet for any type of game mode that you want to do. Now next up, with the actual Mythics, and sorry, I've been called the Mythics, they're actually called Godlies, we have Butoku. Now Butoku has maxed out block, maxed out jump, maxed out spike, and amazing serve. The only thing holding Butoku back a little bit is the pretty bad speed and the pretty bad set. So he can't get to those locations. But if he's already at those locations, then he can just go, he can block it straight back down, he can do pretty good serve, and he can just jump up, spike, jump up, spike. So, because of its lacking speed, I think Butoku would be better in a more 6v6 game mode with more characters around it, so that Butoku doesn't have to go and receive those different spikes that the enemy does with its lacking speed. But in a 6v6 game mode, I think Butoku would do really good. Now next up we have Kageyomo. Kageyomo has pretty good block, pretty good serve, and maxed out set. I think it's the only character with maxed out set. Also really good jump, and speed is pretty good as well. Dive is also really good. Just the spike is lacking. And because of this, I see Kageyomo as a really good supportive character. Basically, right, you can have a Kageyomo, and then you have like an Uchishima or Kageyomo plus Butoku, or even like Kageyomo plus Oigawa. I don't care. It's just Kageyomo is a really good, supporting character because of its amazing maxed out set. It can just give your spiker the perfect spikes every single time. With its also other really good utility stats, such as its really good dive, good speed, and really good block. And these stats allow it to go to a specific location and just make sure that the ball doesn't go, onto the court and the enemy scores a point. The last but not least, we have Sanu. Sanu, this character it's got like the question mark category, right? This character, you can't get it by normal means. You have to be super lucky, and I believe it's level 15 before you can unlock it. Now Sanu, obviously it's, S plus tier, right? It's got its own different type of rarity going on here. Got maxed out block, maxed out jump, maxed out spike. which is the exact same as Butoku, but not only that, right? Its speed is also better than Butoku, its dive is a bit better than Butoku, its set is a bit better than Butoku. The only thing that's a bit lacking is its serve. Its serve is, a lot worse than Butoku, but it makes up for it with tilt. Sanu is able to tilt in midair and then manipulate the ball as no other. Basically, right, a normal spike, it's kind of predictable unless, again, another shameless plug, but I made a video about how to spike, a very in-depth, I think 12-minute video. I'll link it up here. But basically, right, you could go and manipulate the spike like no other with the tilt and just hammer down points every single time. So obviously, Sanu is the best character or the best style that you always want to aim for, but that's not really possible if you're a beginning player in the game. So that is my tier list with the best styles, and that is an in-depth guide. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.